The rain is falling, the room is quiet, and I've saved you a story. Make this a part of your nightly ritual. Subscribe, get cozy, and let go of today. I first noticed him in late March, when the trees were still mostly bare, but the sun had begun to stretch its fingers across the benches. He was always on the third one from the left, near the pond where the ducks gathered noisily in the mornings. Same coat, same hat, a leather-bound book resting beside him that I never once saw him open. I walked past him 3 times that week, always around 9 in the morning. On the 4th day, he looked up and said, not loudly, "You pass like someone measuring time." I didn't answer right away. I wasn't even sure he had spoken to me, but he smiled. Not like someone amused, more like someone who knew something I hadn't yet caught up to. "I just walk here," I said finally. He nodded once, slow and soft. That's the best way to begin. I thought that was the end of it. But the next day, I passed again, and he lifted a finger slightly in greeting, like tipping a hat that wasn't there. I paused. "Do you sit here every day?" I asked. "Only the ones that matter," he said. I glanced at my watch out of habit. 9:23. I had 10 minutes left before work, he noticed. "That's a stiff one," he said, pointing gently toward my wrist. Watches like that, they don't bend. They tell you where to be before you've decided who you are. I didn't know how to respond. His wasn't a question, just an offering. I nodded politely, started walking again. But something about his tone stayed with me, like it hadn't been spoken to me as much as left near me. That night, I went to bed earlier than usual. My watch sat on the table, face down. The next morning, I left the watch on the dresser. Not as an act of rebellion, just to see if anything would change. The air was still cool, crisp enough to keep your hands tucked deep into your coat. He was there again, same bench, same posture, as if the wind knew how to part around him. I sat one bench away this time, not beside him, not yet. He nodded slightly. That same slow recognition, like I was on time, even though no one had scheduled this meeting. "No watch today," he said, eyes on the pond. I smiled faintly, trying something different. He hummed in response, the kind of sound that says, "Both I understand, and I've been waiting for this." "They told us time was a ladder," he said softly. "But it's not. It's a pond. You sit still long enough, and you see what floats to the surface." I wasn't sure if he expected me to respond, so I didn't. We sat in the kind of silence that never felt heavy, only steady. A jogger passed. A child's laugh rang out from the far side of the path. The wind pulled a loose page from someone's notebook and tumbled it across the grass. "Did you ever use a watch?" I asked. He turned slightly, just enough to let the corner of his mouth curve. "I used to check it more than I checked in with myself." He tapped the side of his coat, and I noticed it a slim silver watch, worn inward so the face pressed against his wrist. "Now it just listens," he said. "Tells time, but only if I ask." I watched him a little differently then. He didn't carry stillness like a trick. He had earned it, like someone who had chased everything only to find peace waiting where he'd started. "So what time is it now?" I asked. He closed his eyes for a moment. The birds were quiet. A dog barked once in the distance. "Time enough," he whispered. And I believed him. I sat down beside him that day. Not one bench away, not halfway between movement and pause, just there, next to him, in the shadow of his stillness. He didn't speak right away, and I didn't need him to. The pond had that glassy look again, barely a ripple, like it too was listening. "Most people look for rhythm outside of themselves," he said eventually, still watching the water. "In clocks, in calendars, in other people's pace. But your real tempo, that hum that sits beneath your bones, it's quieter. It won't shout over traffic." I breathed in through my nose, slow, without meaning to. "How did you learn to hear it?" I asked. He chuckled. A warm, brief sound. "By failing to," he said, "for a long, long time." I looked down at my hands, unsure what I was searching for. There were faint ink marks on my fingers from writing earlier that morning. I hadn't even noticed them. "I used to think calm was something you found," I said. "A place, or a time, or a perfect afternoon." He nodded, almost imperceptibly. "Calm isn't a destination. It's the road that remembers you, even when you wander off it." The phrase settled between us like a leaf landing on water. I wanted to ask more, to keep drawing out these lines that sounded like poems left under park benches. But instead, we both just watched. A couple walked by, hands brushing but not quite holding. A plastic bag drifted down from a branch and got caught on a fence, flapping lightly like a lazy flag. "You can hear a lot in a place that doesn't ask anything from you," he said. "This bench never expects me to explain why I'm here." I glanced over. His watch still faced inward, tucked away, ticking quietly in its own language. I thought about how often I tried to explain my time, account for it, justify the minutes. But here, sitting beside him, the minutes didn't ask to be spent. They asked to be noticed, and I did. That morning, I was late. Not by much, perhaps 20 minutes, but enough to notice the change. The bench was empty. The book was gone. The pond still rippled gently in the breeze, but the third bench from the left looked smaller somehow, like it missed being leaned against. I stood beside it for a moment, unsure whether to sit or keep walking. I had never really thought of his presence as a constant, not until it wasn't there. I sat anyway. It felt strange, being in his space without him, as though the bench itself remembered his weight better than I did. The sky was the same soft gray. The ducks moved in small circles near the edge of the water, but something about the moment felt less complete. Not wrong, just incomplete. I watched people pass, some in pairs, some alone, some with coffee in hand, or dogs tugging at leashes. None of them looked twice at the bench. None of them paused. I don't know how long I sat there before I noticed it. A folded slip of paper tucked into the wooden slat between the seat and the backrest. It wasn't hidden, but it wasn't obvious either, placed with intention, like someone had wanted it to wait quietly. I opened it slowly, just 4 words. Even clocks pause sometimes. The handwriting was his. I knew it. Small, steady, unhurried, like someone writing without needing to impress the page. I folded the note again, more carefully than I'd unfolded it, and held it in both hands for a while. No message about returning, no explanation, just that line, gentle, certain. and I realized I wasn't worried. He wasn't lost. He wasn't gone. He had simply paused, and in that, he had invited me to pause too. I sat for a little longer, breathing with the wind, letting the bench carry us both. Then I walked away slower than usual, not because I had time, but because I had finally stopped chasing it. In the days that followed, I stopped bringing my watch. Not out of ritual now, but because it simply began to feel unnecessary. I still woke early, still passed the same streets, still bought coffee from the cart near the crosswalk where the traffic light always blinks too long. But I wasn't checking the time anymore. I was feeling it, letting it sit beside me, not lead me. I didn't see him that week. Not on the bench, not near the pond. I passed the spot anyway, quietly, like one might walk past a closed bookstore, not disappointed, just aware of the absence. I began noticing the pace of things differently. How the woman at the flower stall didn't wrap her bouquets until she was sure you'd stopped moving. How the man sweeping in front of the bakery paused every now and then just to stand, broom resting gently in one hand. How the busker on Green Street always played 1 full minute of silence between songs. I began writing down phrases I heard not from people necessarily, but from the world. Nothing rushed, lasts softer. Even the pigeons wait before they fly. The park gate creaks exactly once when no one is near it. I kept these notes in a small paper sleeve tucked into my coat pocket next to the one he had left me. Even clocks pause sometimes. Some afternoons I would sit on a different bench, not our bench, and close my eyes. Not to sleep, not to think. Just to be there, for as long as the moment let me. And in those quiet, stretched-out spaces, I started to understand what he meant when he said the bench didn't expect explanations. It wasn't just the bench. It was life. The days weren't demanding I justify myself. They just kept arriving. Softly, fully, offering their stillness like a seat someone had warmed before me. He was still gone, but something of him had settled inside me, like a second rhythm, a quieter one, that now pulsed underneath the ticking world. I saw him again, but not where I expected. It was a Thursday, early, the kind of cold that makes your fingertips question your decisions. I had taken a different route that morning, not out of intention, just because my feet turned left instead of right. And there he was, seated on a narrow wooden bench near the entrance to the library. Same coat, same inward-facing watch. His hands rested on a paperback book, closed, thumb tucked into the pages like a placeholder for something he hadn't yet decided to return to. He didn't look surprised to see me. In fact, he looked like someone who had been expecting this very moment, but hadn't needed it to come. I didn't sit right away. I just stood a few feet away, unsure whether to interrupt. He looked up gently. "Sometimes a place outgrows your silence," he said, "and you find another one that hasn't learned your shape yet." I sat then, slowly. The bench creaked slightly beneath us. "You left a note," I said. "On the old bench," he nodded. "Only thing I ever leave behind. A quiet past between us. Not awkward, not heavy, just a kind of mutual recognition. I wanted to ask if he planned to return. If he had done this many times before finding a place, sitting quietly, then vanishing like fog into a warmer day. But instead, I asked, "How do you know when it's time to move on?" He leaned back slightly, looking at the bare branches overhead. "When the silence starts waiting for you to speak instead of speaking with you." I turned those words over in my mind. I'd never thought of stillness as a conversation before. We didn't talk much more that day. He told me the library opened late on Thursdays, and that sometimes he liked to sit nearby and watch people arrive for nothing in particular. "No one's rushing here," he said. "That's the gift of a place like this. You show up slowly." I walked away quietly after that, not wanting to disturb whatever peace he had chosen. But I didn't feel like I had lost the bench, or the pond, or that time we had shared. I just felt like I had been shown something. Stillness is not a location. It's a rhythm you carry. And sometimes, when you're lucky, someone else walks beside it for a while. I hadn't planned to return to the old bench. But one morning, quiet, windless, with that low silver light that makes everything feel like it's holding its breath, I found myself walking the familiar path past the pond, out of rhythm, maybe, or maybe back in it. The bench was empty, no coat, no hat, no silent presence to nod in my direction. And yet, it didn't feel vacant. There was something in the way the morning sat there like it remembered us. I stood in front of it for a moment, unsure if sitting would feel like visiting a memory or trespassing on it. Then I noticed something, tucked gently between the slats, not hidden, but not obvious either. A small envelope, pale yellow, sealed with a bit of string tied into a soft knot. I turned it over, no name, just one word written in delicate print across the front. "Whoever still listens." My chest tightened a little, not with urgency, with recognition, like someone had written a letter not to a person but to a moment, and I had stepped into it. I sat slowly, untying the string, careful not to tear. Inside, a short note and a pressed leaf. Not from this season, not from this park. The note read, "He once said stillness is where we meet ourselves." I sat here. I waited. I heard it too. There was no signature, just that. A quiet echo, a continuation. I held the leaf in my palm dry but intact, and for a while I said nothing, thought nothing. Just let the morning fold around me like a coat left warm by someone who had only just stood up. And I realized then I was not following a person anymore. I was walking in the direction of a feeling, one that others had found, others had left behind. Maybe we don't pass wisdom down in words. Maybe we pass it by sitting quietly enough that someone else knows it's okay to stop walking, even just for a while. The envelope, the note, the pressed leaf, I didn't keep them, not in the usual way. I folded the message again, wrapped the leaf back inside, and left it on the same bench 2 mornings later. Not out of disinterest, but because it wasn't mine to keep. It had landed with me for a reason. But reasons can travel, and some things aren't meant to be carried in pockets, only passed through hands. That day, I didn't sit. I just stood for a few minutes, watching the bench, the pond, the slow sweep of morning light across the stone path. Then I turned and walked away, not with finality, just with breath. Since then, I've started noticing benches everywhere, in different parks, outside libraries, on quiet sidewalks where no one ever seems to rest. And sometimes I leave something, not always words. Once, a small piece of string tied in a loose knot. Once, a pebble with a single line drawn across it in pencil. You are exactly here. I don't sign them. I don't wait nearby. I just leave them the way you might leave an extra light on in a hallway you're not using because someone might need it. I don't know where he is now. The man with the softest watch. I don't know if he's sitting somewhere else, listening to another pond, or if he ever existed at all in the way I remember. But I know this, since I met him, I haven't asked time what it wants from me. I ask myself. I ask the sky. I ask the silence. And sometimes, when I sit very still, I feel like I hear something just beneath the noise, like a quiet voice that says, "This moment is not waiting to become something. It already is." So, I stay a little longer. I don't check the time. I don't need to. The day knows I'm here, and that's enough.